everyone.
Hare Krishna.
We are back here at the Matchless Gifts, 26 2nd Avenue, holiest of holy Tirthas. And we're reading from the Bhagavatam.
Just shout out to Lee from the Bhakti Center.
Yo, Lee.
Hare Krishna, Lee.
Word up, Lee.
We're reading from Canto 4, Chapter 24, Text 37.
Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Text 37. My Lord, O Aniruddha, you are the authority by which the doors of the higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. You are the possessor of semen, which is like gold, and thus in the form of fire. You help the Vedic sacrifices, beginning with Chaturhotra. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. Purport. The word Swaga indicates the position in the higher or heavenly planetary systems, and the word Apavaga means liberation. Those who are attached to the karma kandi activities described in the Vedas are actually entangled in the three modes of material nature. The Bhagavad Gita therefore says that one should be above the dominion of fruitive activities. There are different kinds of liberation or mukti. The best mukti is engagement in the devotional service of the Supreme Lord. Not only does Lord Aniruddha help fruitive actors by elevating them to the higher planetary systems, but he also helps the devotee engage in devotional service by dint of his inexhaustible energy. Just as heat is the source of material energy, the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy by which one can engage in executing devotional service. Interesting. What is this meaning? The inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy. What do we understand by this? Anybody?
We can't hear you. Hello. You can write it down in the thing below. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought you were asking our friends here who are watching. Yeah, it's an interesting statement. It gives the analogy as just as heat is the source of material energy, which in and of itself is also like, what does that mean? I guess it means when there's, because the colder things are, the less it moves, Unless there's heat, everything gets frozen because it's just darkness. So that's that analogy, that heat is the source of material energy. So the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha is the energy by which we can engage in executing devotional service. So we might need to go back. You are the authority by which the doors of higher planetary systems and liberation are opened. You are always within the pure heart of the living entity. Therefore, I offer my obeisances unto you. So it seems that Aniruddha is the directing deity. He's the master of the senses and the mind. So there are these different forms. There's Vasudev, Sankarshan, Vasudev, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. They're the Chaturvyuha, the four expansions of the first quadruple expansion comes from Balaram, and then the next one comes from Sankarshan, I think. So like that, then these personalities, they have specific roles and functions. So I have to be honest with you, I'm not so expert. Aniruddha is also Krishna's son. The same Aniruddha takes birth as Krishna's son, and he is non-different from Cupid, as far as I remember. Like that. So he's all attractive personality.
It seems that the inspiration of Lord Aniruddha, the enthusiasm as such, this energy is what infuses us one to engage in devotional service. So by his mercy, by him, as you said, they all are specific
Different functions.
So this is a function, as it was explained in the previous verse, in terms of executing. I believe they even mentioned deity worship previously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this inspiration. Like, we've just come from the Bhakti Center morning program. We did deity service as well as parent class, Guru Puja. So we're here. So you could say, we choose to do that. We don't have to do that. So you could say the source of that inspiration to do that, specifically, if you want to get, is Aniruddha, the aspect of Krishna's Aniruddha, who ignites that desire.
Okay, sounds like a great answer. So we'll read on, text 38. My Lord, you are the provider of the Pitri Lokas, as well as all the demigods. You are the predominating deity of the moon and the master of the three Vedas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the original source of satisfaction for all living entities. Okay. Purport. When the living entity is born within this material world, especially as a human being, he has several obligations unto the demigods, unto the saintly persons, and unto living entities in general. As enjoined in the Shastras, Devarshi Bhutapta Nrinam Pitrinam. Thus one has an obligation to one's forefathers, the previous hierarchy. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so he can become free from all obligation to the Pitas, demigods, general living entities, and saintly persons, and completely engage himself in the devotional service of the Lord. As stated, Devarshi Bhutapta Nrinam Pitrinam Na Kinkaro Nayam Rine Charajan Sarvatmanaya Sharanam Sharanyam Gato Mukundam Pariritya Kartam. One becomes free from all obligations to the demigods, saintly persons, pitas, and ancient forefathers, etc., if one is completely engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Lord Shiva therefore prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he can be free from such obligations and entirely engage in the Lord's service. It's interesting that phrase seemed to be repeated twice. I don't know if you got that. So it's interesting because it says that by the engagement in devotional service, one becomes freed from these responsibilities. And then Lord Shiva is praying to be freed from the responsibilities so he can engage in devotional service. So it seems like it's a very integral part of what we do. We feel a natural call of responsibility and duty to these things, to the forefathers, to our parents, to our grandparents, to our aunts and uncles. We feel like maybe for most of us not so much for the demigods, but definitely people from who are Hindu background, they naturally feel a kind of inclination towards making sure I don't leave out any of the demigods. Mm-hmm. And then saintly persons to a greater or lesser extent, we may feel an obligation to saintly people. Most of us in like Western material life feel an obligation to our boss, feel an obligation to teachers, feel an obligation to the police force or the government. We feel some obligations in these ways, like, no, I have to do it. So the point being that, yes, in one sense, we are indebted to these personalities, the demigods, for providing light and water and air and so many things, and saintly people by giving us knowledge and wisdom, the forefathers by giving us like our home, and basically bringing us into the world and life. Yeah. And so there is an obligation, but now through the performance of devotional service, we're no longer obliged. And this is an interesting point, because I maybe Prabhupada will touch on this in the next paragraph or elsewhere, but for sure, it's not that we still don't do things. Like Bhagavad Gita explains that, charity should never be given up. We should always continue to act in a way, yad yada charity shreshtas. We should continue to act in a way that is proper conduct and sets the right example for others. Not that all of a sudden, and this is what happens, I definitely have seen it, I felt it in myself also, that we think, oh, I'm now on the transcendental platform, I don't need to do anything or care about anyone, I don't need to follow any rules or regulations. And we were having a chat about this actually on Sunday with some other kind of senior devotees, and we were sharing how this is a natural kind of neophyte mentality that, oh, I've skipped right from the lowest modes of tamagun to the highest levels of transcendental consciousness, and I'm not obliged to anyone. I don't have to be responsible. I don't have to do so many things. So yeah, it's like that. But the actual fact is that we're not obliged karmically, but we may still act in such a way that we fulfill a duty or our duty. I don't know if that made sense. That makes sense.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Next paragraph. Soma, or the predominating deity of the moon, is responsible for the living entity's ability to relish the taste of food through the tongue. Lord Shiva prays to Lord Aniruddha to give him strength so that he will not taste anything but the prasad of the Lord. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sung a verse indicating that the tongue is the most formidable enemy among all the senses. If one can control the tongue, he can easily control the other senses. The tongue can be controlled only by eating prasad offered to the deity. Lord Shiva's prayer to Lord Aniruddha is meant for this purpose. Triptidaya. He prays to Lord Aniruddha to help him be satisfied by eating only prasad offered to the Lord.
Important.
Yeah, it's interesting, just like repeating, I guess, what's mentioned before, how Srila Prabhupada actually really brings out another side, the true side of Lord Shiva, because again, as we said before, he's definitely not presented like as a Vaishnava, as a devotee of Krishna. When you're growing up in a Hindu environment, he's presented different ways of in one sense of like his own independent, indestructible force, But when you read when Prabhupada explains, like, he's the greatest Vaishnava and he's so keen for everyone to be worshipping Krishna and he's very fond of the devotees, and here he's praying just to eat prasadam, and how he's depicted with ghosts and goblins, and was it people drink alcohol in his name, or they have
take
drugs and that, but he's just aspiring to always eat Krishna prasadam, So yeah, it's like all glories to Prabhupada that he presents him in the correct, respectable way, That's what stood out, for me, I would say.
Yeah, and of course, it's not just that Prabhupada is presenting it in that way. We've read like Shastric statements where Lord Shiva is saying, I consider you all worshipable because you're devotees of the Lord, you're devotees of Vishnu, devotees of Krishna. And I'm trying to be a devotee of Krishna also, and he's offering, so Prabhupada is just really presenting, as you said, the Shastra as it is.
He's revealing.
He's revealing it, yeah, instead of, what people may see or understand as Shastra or someone being independent. But
Yeah, or like you see young Western people, these psychedelic T-shirts, and they got Shiva on them, and you're like, what's up with that? You know?
Well, I had one,
Oh.
and I also had a
All right. And
portrait
so,
of Lord
what
Shiva.
did you think he was? Why did you have that?
Well, this is the thing.
Did you think he was a Vaishnava?
I didn't even know what a heckin' Vaishnava was. I didn't know if anyone was a Vaishnava and couldn't have cared less. I just thought he looked cool. And of
Right.
course he had snakes around his neck and, you know, dreadlocks and was half naked and he looked super cool. And I just thought, yeah, you know, if this is some sort of a god, I'm into him. But I remember Jai Vedamar saying to friend of mine, because he was saying, yeah, I was into Lord Shiva before I got, you know, into Krishna consciousness, because he kind of has a certain, you know, it's like, I mean, like he's like, you know, Lenny Kravitz, you know, it's like people who like attracted him. He's obviously beyond Lenny Kravitz, but you know, it's like it has a certain look and a demeanor about him. And
He's
but
cool.
Jai Wait, yeah, he's cool. That's what I just said. So Jai Waitamar said, yeah, it's natural for people in the mode of ignorance to be attracted by the Lord of the mode of ignorance, you know.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. So, but you know, of course, he's not necessarily in the mode of ignorance, but he is definitely the presiding deity of Tamagun, and his associates are definitely heavily influenced in that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lord Shiva definitely elsewhere, and especially in the general Hindu populace and community, is not represented as, you know, the Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu, the greatest of Vaishnavas. And there was that video Tamal Krishna Maharaj did in Fiji, where it was all about demigods and goddesses or something, and he took an altar that had all these different pictures on it, and he explained how every single person on that altar is a devotee of Krishna, and therefore the only person we need on the altar is Krishna. And everyone was like amazed, you know. Yes, it's a definite misconception. Okay, should we conclude there?
Okay.
All right, everyone. Thank you so very much for tuning in. We're trying to get caught up here, and we fell behind a little bit while we were away. Somehow we had recorded some videos, which you probably were just recently watching, and but because of internet speed and technical difficulties, they didn't get uploaded, and then we just put them on this week. So you should be, you know, coming back to like where we are when we are, because probably the last video you saw we were in England, but we've been back here for a good week now. So
Yeah, this going out today.
all right,
This is live, as it were.
Okay, see you guys later. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Matchless Gifts Ki Jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.